So about 2 years ago, my whole life just kind of got turned upside down by an encounter with a stranger. It was in September of 2009, and at the time I was pretty lost. I was pretty broken down and alone. I had just gotten a second job at this new pizza place, and I met this guy, this older gentleman, that my very first day, and I think it was his first day too, and his name was Will, and he asked if I could give him a ride home. At first I was a little hesitant because I didn't know him, and I also had to get to my second job, and I didn't have much time, but something just inside of me was like, give this guy a ride. If you needed a ride, you would want someone to help you out. So at the time, I owned this blue car that was all beaten up, no bumper, bent hood, all of that fun stuff. And so he gets into my car, and the first thing he does, and I'll never forget this, he lays his hand on my dashboard and just starts praying over the car, saying, Lord, I pray that we arrive safely to our destination. And at first, I was like, oh my gosh, why did I give this person a ride? Like, oh, it's a weirdo. And then the prayer kind of started to change, and he started praying for me. And again, it was making me really uncomfortable, and I didn't like the feel. I almost felt convicted, maybe. But then the prayer started to hit me in a different way. I felt like this man I never met knew things about me that no stranger should know. I felt like he was speaking directly to my heart. We were driving on this road, and he told me to pull over at this park, and that so we could finish our conversation. So we pull over, and he just starts talking more and praying for me, and all I remember is this feeling inside of me that was saying, it's time, it's now or never, this urgency to surrender my life to Christ. And I felt God's presence in that car like I'd never felt it before. This man who was talking to me, I felt like God was speaking to me through him. He said something to me that I remember very clearly, and I'll never forget. He said, you are not alone, and you're loved. And for me, that was really a big deal, because for so long, my whole life, I've just been searching for someone to love me, for someone to be satisfied with the person that I am and not try to make me be anything that I'm not. I remember I just started breaking down, and I was crying, and I was praying with him at this point, and we were getting towards the end of our conversation, and I had to go because I had to work, and he started to get out of the car, and I was trying to tell him, I can give you a ride home. It's not a big deal. You don't have to walk the rest of the way. And as he was getting out of my car, he pointed across the street, and he was like, that's my home. And I turned my head, and I looked over, and it was a men's homeless shelter. I remember in that moment, I think I realized just how great Christ's love really is, because this man who had nothing in the world's eyes, he had no place to call his own. He just had the clothes on his back. He had his trumpet, and he had his Bible. And normally I would have looked at him, or the world would have looked at him and seen someone who should be miserable and unhappy and who was lost. But he wasn't lost at all. And he was the richest of us all, because he knew what Christ's love was, and he had a relationship with Christ. I went home that day, and I had to search for my Bible, I'll admit, and I opened it up. And the first scripture I opened up to was Jeremiah 29:11 through 14. And I know a lot of people have heard this verse, but for me, that was the first time I'd ever read it. I'd never heard of it, never read it. And if you can imagine, the scripture says that I have a plan for you. And it doesn't matter where you've been, but if you call upon me with your whole heart, I'll bring you back from captivity and I'll rescue. That's pretty much the gist of the scripture. And I felt like God in that moment was speaking directly to me, that he was reaching out and touching my heart and saying, it's okay. I know you've made mistakes, but I'm here with you. I love you. And if you call to me, I'll bring you back, and I'll carry you safely into your future, and I do have a plan for you, and I have a purpose for you. I can honestly say that my life has never been the same since that day when I gave my life to Christ.